Wonjin Kang woke up in a stranger's bed with poison still burning through his veins and a target on his back the size of Seoul. The woman standing over him, curves wrapped in silk, midnight curls spilling over brown shoulders, eyes that held both murder and mercy, was the daughter of the man he'd ordered killed 3 years ago. Keisha Robinson, the ghost of Kingston. The woman he'd sworn to erase from existence. She'd just saved his life. "Don't move." Her voice smooth, Caribbean, laced with warning, cut through the haze of pain. She didn't look at him right away. She was sitting on the edge of the bed, city lights painting gold lines across her face, checking the IV in his arm with clinical precision. "I spent 6 hours flushing the poison from your system. Your own family tried to kill you at your own gala, by the way. Champagne and cyanide. Very elegant." Jin tried to sit up. Fire exploded through his ribs, forcing a strangled gasp from his throat. His vision blurred at the edges. "I said don't move." Keisha's hand pressed against his bare chest, firm, steady, oddly gentle for someone who should be holding a knife to his throat. Her palm was warm against his skin, and he hated how his body registered safety instead of threat. "You're dying, Wonjin. Slowly. The antidote I gave you bought you time, not immunity." Her dark eyes met his, a long, still stare that felt like a verdict. "The question is, why did the Mafia king who killed my father collapse on my doorstep bleeding like a broken god? Kang Syndicate." His voice came out rough, broken. "They own everything. The docks, the politicians, my own blood. I know." She pulled back, silhouette sharp against floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul. "I've been watching you for 3 years, Jin, waiting for my moment." Her lips curved, not amusement, but something darker. "Which makes this interesting. The wolf becomes the lamb, and his only sanctuary is the woman he swore to kill." Jin's hand went to his side, searching for the Glock that was always there. Nothing. No gun, no phone, no ring, no escape. "Looking for this?" Keisha held up his platinum signet ring, the Kang family crest smeared with dried blood. "I destroyed the tracking chip inside it. You're welcome. But it transmitted 16 hours of location data before I could disable it." She tossed it onto the silk sheets beside him. "So here's our situation, Mafia King. You're a poisoned fugitive who led your brother's entire death squad to my door. I'm the daughter of the man you murdered in cold blood. And in approximately," she checked her phone, "43 minutes, both the Kang Syndicate and my father's old crew will converge on this location to kill us both." She moved closer, arms crossed, beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. "Still think bleeding out on my threshold was a good idea? But how did we get here? How does the most feared Korean Mafia king in Seoul end up at the mercy of the Jamaican woman he's been hunting? The one woman who has every reason to watch him die slowly? Let me take you back to where it all began. 24 hours earlier, when Wonjin Kang's empire cracked, when champagne turned to poison, when love, revenge, and betrayal collided under the crystal chandeliers of his own syndicate gala. Beautiful souls, if this is your first time here, welcome. You're about to hear something special. Do me a favor. Subscribe so you don't miss what happens next, and comment below where in the world you're watching from. I love seeing our global family grow. Alright, let's begin. Flashback begins. The poisoning at the gala. The Kang Syndicate gala was a monument to power. Crystal chandeliers dripped light over Seoul's most dangerous men dressed in $1,000 suits. Politicians, arms dealers, bankers who laundered blood money with the stroke of a pen. All of them here to kiss the ring of Wonjin Kang, the 32-year-old king who'd built an empire on fear and precision. Jin moved through the crowd like a predator in a tailored Tom Ford suit, champagne glass in hand, every eye tracking him with mixture of reverence and terror. His younger half-brother, Kang Dae-hyun, stood at the bar, smile too wide, eyes too bright. "To family," Dae-hyun said, raising his glass. Jin should have seen it then. The tremor in his brother's hand, the sweat at his temple, the way his eyes didn't quite meet Jin's. But he didn't. He raised his glass. "To blood." The champagne was excellent. Dom Perignon, 2008. It slid down smooth, cold, perfect. Then the room tilted. Jin's glass slipped from his fingers, shattering against marble. His vision doubled. The chandeliers spun like dying stars. "Jin?" Someone's voice, distant, concerned. He turned toward Dae-hyun. His brother's face was stone. No shock, no fear, guilt. "I'm sorry, Hyung," Dae-hyun whispered. "But the syndicate needs a king who isn't haunted." Jin's legs gave out. Hands caught him, his own security, his own men, but they weren't helping him stand. They were letting him fall. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was Dae-hyun's face. Cold, calculated, Victorious. Jin's escape. Jin woke in an alley, rain hammering his face, the taste of blood and poison thick on his tongue. He didn't know how he'd gotten there. Didn't know who dragged him from the gala. But he knew one thing. He was supposed to be dead. Every breath was agony. The poison was still working, slow and methodical, shutting down his organs one by one. He needed help. A doctor. A safe house. Anyone. Through the haze of pain, one face surfaced in his memory. Keisha Robinson. The daughter of Marcus Robinson. The Jamaican gunrunner Jin had executed 3 years ago in an Incheon warehouse. The woman who'd vanished after her father's death. The ghost Jin's network had been hunting for 36 months. Intel said she was in Seoul. Somewhere. Hidden. It was suicide going to her. She'd probably finish what the poison started. But Jin was already dying. He forced his body upright, stumbling through Seoul's rain-slicked streets. One hand pressed against his abdomen where the poison burned like acid. Every step sent lightning through his spine. The apartment complex rose before him, glass and steel, the kind of place that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. Security cameras tracked his approach. Jin collapsed against the intercom, leaving bloody fingerprints on polished chrome. Keisha. His voice was gone, just a rasp. I know you're here. I know. The door hissed open. She stood in the doorway like vengeance wrapped in silk. Keisha Robinson. 5'7" of controlled fury, brown skin glowing against white fabric, curls wild and free, eyes that recognized him instantly. She looked at his face, his blood, his desperation. One eyebrow arched. You're bleeding on my threshold, Wonjin. They poisoned me, he gasped, the world spinning. My own brother. He saw her expression shift. Recognition, calculation, something else he couldn't name. Then his legs gave out and the darkness swallowed him whole. Pain dragged him back to consciousness. Not the screaming agony of the poison that had been dulled to a deep, throbbing ache. This was different, surgical pain. The kind that came from being opened up and stitched back together. Jin's eyes cracked open to find himself shirtless in what looked like a luxury apartment crossed with a medical facility. Silk sheets, IV drip, bandages wrapped around his torso, soft lighting, the faint scent of antiseptic masked by something floral vanilla, maybe, and Keisha Robinson sitting in a chair by the window, fingers flying across a tablet screen, her profile sharp and unreadable. You're awake. She didn't look up. Try not to move. I spent 6 hours purging the poison from your system and repairing the internal damage. I'd hate to redo my work. Jin tried to sit up. Fire exploded through his core, forcing a strangled gasp. I said, don't move. Now she looked at him, dark eyes sharp with irritation. You have a perforated stomach lining, damaged kidneys, and enough toxins in your blood to kill a horse. You're lucky I'm thorough. You? His voice came out rough. You saved me? Who else was I going to call? A hospital? Her smile was sharp, humorless. They ask questions, file reports. And you, Wonjin Kang, are currently wanted for embezzlement, treason, and the murder of 2 syndicate lieutenants who mysteriously died the night of the gala. The words hit like bullets. I didn't. I know. She set the tablet aside, leaning forward. Your brother's already spinning the narrative. You went rogue. Tried to steal syndicate assets. Killed loyalists in your escape. Very dramatic. Very convenient. Jin's hands clenched in the sheets, every muscle screaming protest. Dae-Hyun planned everything. Obviously. Keisha stood, moving closer. In the soft lighting, he could see her more clearly. Mid-20s. Beautiful in a fierce, untouchable way. No jewelry except small gold hoops. No makeup. She didn't need it. His eyes traced the curve of her throat. The defiant set of her shoulders. The way her white slip clung to her body like water. He looked away, feeling exposed. You're the ghost, Jin said quietly. Marcus Robinson's daughter. I've had people looking for you for 3 years. And now you found me. She tilted her head. Congratulations. You're lying in my apartment, completely at my mercy, wanted by your own syndicate and every crew in Seoul that wants to claim the bounty on your head. She stopped at the edge of the bed, arms crossed. I could kill you, should kill you, by any logical calculation. Then why haven't you? Something flickered in her eyes, pain, memory, something raw. Because I spent 2 years planning my revenge. 2 years imagining the moment I'd put a bullet in your skull for what you did to my father. Her voice dropped. And then I watched you collapse in the rain, poisoned by your own blood. And I realized something. She leaned closer, her face inches from his. Killing you quickly would be mercy. And I'm not feeling merciful. Killing you quickly would be mercy. Keisha's voice was silk over steel. And I'm not feeling merciful. Jin held her gaze, searching for the lie, the crack in her armor. He found nothing but cold, calculated truth. Then what do you want? Her lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I want you to understand what it feels like to be powerless. To have your life in someone else's hands. She straightened, moving back to her chair. But I'm getting ahead of myself. She picked up her tablet, fingers swiping through security footage timestamp, 24 hours earlier. Let me show you how we really got here, Wonjin. Let me show you the night your empire fell. 24 hours earlier, the Kang Syndicate Gala was a cathedral of excess. 300 guests filled the grand ballroom of the Shilla Hotel Seoul's elite, dressed in designer armor, diamonds glittering under crystal chandeliers that cost more than most people's homes. The air was thick with expensive perfume, aged whiskey, and the particular tension that came when powerful men gathered in one room. Wonjin Kang moved through the crowd like a king surveying his kingdom. At 32, he was the youngest head of the Kang Syndicate in its 70-year history. Tom Ford suit tailored to perfection, platinum cufflinks, hair swept back to reveal a face that belonged on magazine covers. If those magazines featured organized crime, sharp jawline, cold eyes, the kind of beautiful that made people forget how dangerous he was, until it was too late. Hyung! Kang Dae-hyun appeared at his elbow, champagne flutes in hand, smile wide and bright. His younger half-brother, 28, ambitious, always 3 steps behind Jin in the hierarchy. You look tense. Drink with me. Jin accepted the glass, noting the slight tremor in Dae-hyun's hand. Nerves. His brother had always been nervous at these events, uncomfortable with the weight of what the Kang name meant. To family, Dae-hyun said, raising his glass higher than necessary. To blood, Jin replied, and drank. Outside, in the rain, Keisha Robinson watched. She stood across the street beneath a black umbrella, invisible in the Seoul night. Eyes locked on the illuminated windows of the ballroom. She'd been tracking Wonjin Kang for 3 months, learning his patterns, his security rotations, his weaknesses. Tonight was supposed to be the night she put a bullet through the heart of the man who'd murdered her father. She'd planned it perfectly, bribed a catering staff member, smuggled the gun inside a dessert cart. All she needed was 5 minutes alone with him. 5 minutes to make Marcus Robinson's killer understand what it meant to beg for mercy and receive none. But now, watching through the windows, something felt wrong. The way Dae-hyun stood too close to Jin. The way the other lieutenants had positioned themselves not protective, but predatory. The way the crowd seemed to hold its breath. Keisha's finger hovered over her phone, the one connected to the security feed she'd hacked weeks ago. She zoomed in on Jin's face, and watched him realize he'd been poisoned. Inside, the room tilted sideways. Jin's champagne flute slipped from his fingers, exploding against marble in a shower of crystal and Dom Perignon. The chandelier above him spun like a dying star. His throat constricted, stomach cramping with vicious, surgical precision. Poison. The thought cut through the haze with crystalline clarity. He turned toward Dae-hyun. His brother's face had gone carefully blank, no shock, no panic, no concern. Guilt. I'm sorry, Hyung, Dae-hyun whispered, close enough that only Jin could hear. But the syndicate needs a king who isn't haunted by ghosts. You've been weak, distracted, looking for that Jamaican girl for 3 years like she's the only thing that matters. Jin's hand shot out, gripping his brother's collar, but his strength was bleeding away with every heartbeat. The poison was fast, professional, cyanide derivative, his mind supplied uselessly. Kills in minutes. You? I did what you taught me. Dae-hyun's smile was sad, almost apologetic. I eliminated the threat. Jin's security closed in his men, his soldiers, but their hands weren't helping him stand. They were blocking his exit. He saw it in their eyes. They'd already chosen the new king. Betrayal wasn't a knife. It was a room full of people watching you die. Survival instinct kicked in. Jin shoved past a lieutenant, stumbling toward the service exit. His legs barely held him. The room spun, faces blurring into abstract shapes. Behind him, Dae-hyun called out calmly, "Let him go. He won't make it 2 blocks." The rain hit Jin like a physical blow. Cold, relentless. Seoul's streets were slick and dark, neon signs reflecting in puddles like drowned stars. He crashed into an alley, hand pressed against brick, stomach heaving. The poison was spreading. He could feel it shutting down his organs one by one. Kidneys, liver, lungs. Move, keep moving, don't stop. But his body was giving up. His legs folded, He collapsed against a dumpster, rain hammering his face, mixing with the blood he was coughing up. So this was how it ended. Not in a blaze of glory, not defending his empire. Betrayed by blood in a soul alley, choking on poison and rain. Keisha ran. She didn't know why. Didn't question it. She just ran. She'd watched Jin stumble out of the gala, watched him collapse in the alley 3 blocks away through hacked CCTV feeds. This was what she wanted, wasn't it? Marcus Robinson's killer dying alone in the gutter like the dog he was. Let him die, a voice whispered. He deserves it. But her father's face flashed in her mind, not the corpse she'd identified in that cold Incheon morgue, but the man who'd taught her to play dominoes, who'd braided her hair, who'd told her that mercy was the hardest form of strength. Sometimes, baby girl, her father had said, the most powerful thing you can do is save someone who doesn't deserve it. Keisha found Jin crumpled against the alley wall, rain turning his white shirt translucent, blood staining his lips. His eyes were half closed, consciousness slipping away. He was beautiful even dying, unfairly so. Damn you, she whispered. She knelt beside him, fingers finding his pulse. Weak, erratic, dying. Cyanide poisoning, her mind catalogued. She'd studied toxicology for 2 years specifically to understand how to kill efficiently. Now that knowledge was screaming at her. Sodium thiosulfate, amyl nitrite, oxygen minutes, not hours. She could walk away. Should walk away. This was justice, one Jin Kang dying the way her father had died. Alone, afraid, betrayed. But when she looked at his face, she didn't see the Mafia king. She saw a man who'd been murdered by his own family. She saw herself. I'm going to regret this, Keisha muttered, hooking her arms under his shoulders. He was heavier than he looked. Dead weight slumped against her. I'm going to regret this so much. She dragged him to her car parked 2 blocks away, a black Mercedes she'd bought with cash. Untraceable. Jin's head lolled against her shoulder, his breath shallow and wet against her neck. Stay with me, she ordered, though she didn't know why she cared. Don't you dare die before I decide if I'm going to kill you myself. Her apartment was equipped for exactly this scenario. Not saving Jin specifically, she'd never imagined that particular nightmare, but for medical emergencies. When you lived off the grid, hunted by the same people who'd killed your father, you learned to be prepared. She laid Jin on her bed, stripping away his blood-soaked shirt with clinical efficiency. His torso was a map of violence, scars, tattoos, the hard muscle of someone who'd survived too many fights. Don't think of him as a person, she told herself. He's just a body, just a problem to solve. But her hands were gentle as she inserted the IV, administered the antidote, monitored his vitals. 6 hours she worked, pulling him back from death's edge with the same precision he'd probably used ordering her father's execution. Irony was a cruel architect. As dawn broke over Seoul, Jin's breathing finally steadied. The poison was purged. The crisis passed. Keisha collapsed in the chair by the window, exhaustion crushing her. She'd saved him. The man she'd sworn to kill. The man who'd destroyed her family. What have I done? She whispered to the empty room. Jin stirred on the bed, still unconscious but alive. Undeniably, frustratingly alive. Keisha picked up her tablet, pulling up the security footage from the gala. She watched Dae-hyun's betrayal on repeat. Watched the syndicate turn on their king. Watched Jin stumble into the rain to die alone. Maybe mercy isn't about what you deserve, she said softly, echoing her father's words. Maybe it's about who I choose to be. The words felt like a betrayal of everything she'd become. But as she watched Jin breathe, he watched his chest rise and fall with the life she'd given back to him. Something shifted in her chest. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But maybe. Possibility. The kind that was more dangerous than any poison. Jin woke to the smell of coffee and the weight of failure. His body felt like it had been rebuilt from spare parts stitched together, functional, but wrong somehow. The IV was gone from his arm, replaced by medical tape and the ghost of a bruise. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, painting Keisha's apartment in shades of gold. 72 hours. That's how long he'd been here, drifting in and out of consciousness while his body purged the poison. He remembered fragments. Keisha's hands checking his pulse, her voice sharp with command when he tried to move, the cool press of water against his lips. She'd kept him alive when she should have let him die. Why? Jin forced himself upright, ignoring the protest of abused muscles. He was shirtless, bandages wrapped around his torso, dressed in black silk pajama pants he definitely hadn't been wearing when he collapsed in that alley. She changed me. The thought sent something uncomfortable through his chest. Not quite embarrassment, but close. Keisha stood at the kitchen counter, back to him, pouring coffee into 2 mugs. She'd traded the white slip for fitted black jeans and an off-shoulder burgundy top that revealed the elegant line of her spine. Her curls were pulled into a high ponytail, exposing the vulnerable curve of her neck. Jin's fingers twitched with the muscle memory of violence. That's where you'd strike. Quick. Clean. She'd never see it coming. Your coffee's getting cold, Keisha said without turning around, as if she could feel his eyes on her. And if you're thinking about trying to kill me, you should know you can barely stand, let alone fight. I can stand. Prove it. Jin swung his legs over the bed's edge, planting his feet on polished hardwood. He stood, and immediately his vision grayed at the edges, legs trembling like a newborn colt's. Keisha turned just in time to catch him. Her hands gripped his arms, steady and strong, holding him upright with surprising ease. Stubborn, she muttered, guiding him to the leather sofa by the windows. Like father, like killer. The words hung between them, sharp as broken glass. Jin sank into the sofa, accepting the coffee mug she pressed into his hands. It was good dark roast, no sugar, exactly how he took it. How did you... I've been watching you for 3 months, Wonjin. I know how you take your coffee. I know you run 5 miles every morning at dawn. I know you visit your mother's grave on the 15th of every month. Keisha settled into the chair across from him, her own mug cradled in both hands. I know everything about you. Then you know I didn't have a choice. Her laugh was bitter. There's always a choice. You chose to put a bullet in my father's head. He was running guns to the Yakuza, selling syndicate intel to the highest bidder. Jin's voice was flat, emotionless, the tone he used when discussing business. He was a liability. He was my father. He was a traitor. He was innocent. The words exploded from Keisha with such force that coffee sloshed over the rim of her mug. She set it down hard, standing abruptly, hands shaking with barely contained rage. Jin went still, every instinct screaming danger. What? You heard me. Keisha's voice dropped to something deadly quiet. Marcus Robinson never sold intel to the Yakuza, never ran unauthorized guns, never betrayed your precious syndicate. She crossed to a sleek desk, yanking open a drawer to pull out a thick file folder. She threw it at Jin, papers scattering across his lap, photographs spilling onto the floor. I spent 2 years digging through my father's network. 2 years chasing ghosts and bribing informants and hacking into servers that should have gotten me killed. Her eyes were bright with unshed tears and fury. You want to know what I found? Proof. Jin's hands moved automatically, sorting through the documents. Bank statements, shipping manifests, encrypted communications. His blood turned to ice as the pattern emerged. The intel you received about my father, Keisha continued, voice shaking, was fabricated. The guns you thought he was selling? Planted evidence. The Yakuza connection? Lies. She jabbed a finger at a photograph, Kang Dae-hyun shaking hands with a man Jin recognized as a Yakuza lieutenant. Your brother framed my father. Dae-hyun needed to consolidate power, expand into territories Marcus controlled. So he manufactured a betrayal, fed you false intelligence, and let you pull the trigger. The words hit like bullets, each one tearing through Jin's carefully constructed armor. No, but even as he said it, Jin's mind was racing, connecting dots he'd been too blind to see. Dae-hyun had been the one to bring him the intel. Dae-hyun had insisted on immediate action. Dae-hyun had stood beside him in that Incheon warehouse when Marcus Robinson knelt before them, pleading innocence with his last breath. He played you, Keisha said, voice breaking. And you were so convinced of your own judgment, so certain in your power, that you never questioned it. You just pulled the trigger. Jin stared at the photograph of his brother. The man who'd poisoned him. The man who'd betrayed him. The man who'd been planning this for years. I killed an innocent man. The words tasted like ash and blood. Yes. Keisha's voice was quiet now, drained. You did. Silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Jin's hands clenched around the papers, his jaw tight enough to crack teeth. Everything he'd built his empire on, loyalty, justice, swift retribution, had been a lie. Why save me? The question came out raw, broken. If you knew the truth, if you had proof, why not let me die in that alley? It's what I deserve. Keisha moved to the window, silhouette sharp against Seoul's skyline. When she spoke, her voice was soft but steady. Because the night I found that evidence, I realized something. Killing you wouldn't bring my father back. It wouldn't undo what Dae-hyun did. She turned to face him. But watching you wake up and realize you were used, manipulated, turned into a weapon against an innocent man, Her smile was sharp as a blade. That felt like justice. Jin wanted to argue, to rage, to break something. But she was right. The guilt crushing his chest was worse than any poison. He used us both, Jin said quietly. Dae-hyun, he made me kill your father, made you lose everything, and now he's trying to erase me too. I know. So what do we do? Keisha crossed back to him, standing close enough that he could smell her perfume, something with vanilla and spice. She held out her hand. We make him pay, together. Jin looked at her hand, brown skin, elegant fingers, the same hand that had saved his life and could just as easily end it. This woman had every reason to hate him, every reason to destroy him. But Dae-hyun had destroyed them both already. Maybe 2 broken pieces could forge something sharper than a blade. Jin took her hand. Her grip was firm, strong, the handshake of equals making a dangerous pact. Allies, he said. Temporarily, Keisha corrected. Don't think this means I forgive you. When this is over, when Dae-hyun is bleeding out the way my father did, you and I, we settle our debt. Fair enough. She pulled her hand away but didn't step back. They stood close, 2 people who should be enemies, bound by blood and betrayal and a shared hunger for revenge. First, Keisha said, voice turning businesslike, we need to get you strong enough to fight. Second, we gather allies. Third, Jin interrupted, voice dark with promise. We tear down my brother's empire and make him watch. Keisha's smile was beautiful and terrifying. Now you're speaking my language. The abandoned docks of Incheon smelled like rust and ghosts. Jin stood in the shadow of a derelict shipping container, the same place he'd executed Marcus Robinson 3 years ago. The memory was vivid, the smell of brine and blood, the sound of the man's final pleas, the weight of the gun in his hand. He was here, Jin said quietly. Your father. He died right there. He pointed to a patch of concrete stained darker than the rest. Rain had tried to wash it clean for 3 years. It hadn't succeeded. Keisha stood beside him, wrapped in a black leather jacket despite the mild night, her face unreadable. I know. I've been here before. When? The night after I found out you killed him. I came here with a gun and a plan to paint this dock with your blood. Her voice was flat, emotionless. But you never came back. Coward. Jin's jaw tightened. I'm not sentimental. No. You're just efficient. She moved past him toward the old warehouse, its windows shattered, walls covered in graffiti and decay. Which is why Dae-hyun knew you'd never question the evidence. He knew exactly how to manipulate you. The words stung because they were true. They'd left Keisha's apartment 2 hours ago, Jin moving stiffly but functional, dressed in black tactical gear she'd somehow procured. His ribs still ached with every breath, but the poison was gone. He was alive. Operational. Keisha had tracked the money trail payments from Dae-hyun to Yakuza accounts. Bribes to syndicate lieutenants, a paper trail of conspiracy that led straight to this dock. To the night, Jin had become a weapon in his brother's hands. There, Keisha said, pointing to a rusted door hanging off its hinges. Security camera. It's been dead for years, but the hard drive might still be salvageable. Jin pulled the door open with a metallic shriek that echoed across the empty dock. Inside, the warehouse was a graveyard of shipping equipment forklifts with flat tires, pallets rotting into splinters, the skeleton of a crane rusting against the back wall. Keisha pulled out a tactical flashlight, beam cutting through the darkness. The office is upstairs. That's where the surveillance system was. They climbed the metal stairs in silence, boots ringing against iron. Jin's hand instinctively went to his waist where his gun used to be. Keisha had given him a Glock before they left Korean police issue. Untraceable, but it felt wrong in his grip. Foreign. Everything felt foreign now. The office was a disaster, papers scattered like confetti, filing cabinets overturned, desk collapsed in on itself. Someone had torn through here looking for something. Dae-hyun's people, Jin said. Covering tracks. Maybe. Keisha knelt beside the destroyed security system, fingers moving with practiced ease through the wreckage. But they weren't thorough. She pulled a small black box from beneath the rubble, a backup drive, cracked but intact. Her smile was sharp and satisfied. Amateurs! Can you access it? I'm a hacker, Jin. This is what I do. She pulled a tablet from her bag, connecting cables with quick efficiency. The screen flickered to life, code scrolling past faster than Jin could follow. He watched her work, the fierce concentration on her face, the way her fingers flew across the keyboard, the intelligence that burned behind her eyes. This woman had spent 2 years hunting truth while he'd spent the same time hunting shadows. Got it, Keisha breathed. The tablet screen split into 4 camera feeds. Timestamp, 3 years ago. The night Marcus Robinson died. Jin watched himself on screen, younger, colder, dressed in an expensive suit that he remembered cost more than most people's cars. Dae-hyun stood beside him, along with 3 lieutenants, and Marcus Robinson, bound to a chair, blood running from a split lip. "I didn't betray you." Marcus's voice crackled through the tablet speakers, Jamaican accent thick with fear and fury. "Someone's setting me up. Check the accounts yourself, those transactions aren't mine." "We did check," on-screen Jin said, voice emotionless. "The evidence is conclusive." "Then the evidence is fake. Please." "Jin, I've worked with the Kang Syndicate for 15 years. Why would I throw that away?" Dae-hyun stepped forward, hand on Jin's shoulder. "Hyung, we should move. We have other business tonight." But on screen, Jin hesitated. For just a moment, doubt flickered across his face. "Wait." "Present day," Jin said, leaning closer to the screen. "Go back. Zoom in on Dae-hyun's left hand." Keisha rewound, enhanced the image. In Dae-hyun's hand was a phone, screen visible for just a second. On it, a text message. "Make it quick. Yakuza lieutenant arrives in 20 minutes. He can't see Robinson alive. He wasn't just framing your father," Jin said slowly, pieces falling into place. "He was using the execution as cover for a meeting. The Yakuza were here." That night, Keisha fast-forwarded through the footage. 10 minutes after Marcus Robinson's execution, after Jin and his men had left a black SUV pulled up to the dock, 3 men emerged. One of them the same Yakuza lieutenant from the photograph in her file. Dae-hyun greeted them like old friends. "What are they carrying?" Keisha zoomed in on cases being transferred from the SUV to a waiting truck. Jin's blood ran cold. "Those are military-grade weapons. Russian make. The same cash that went missing from a syndicate shipment 6 months before your father died. Dae-hyun stole from his own syndicate and blamed it on your father." Jin's fists clenched. "He killed 2 birds with 1 bullet, eliminated a witness to his dealings, and took control of your father's distribution network." Keisha's hands shook on the tablet. "My father died so your brother could expand his empire." "Our brother," Jin corrected bitterly. "Blood means everything in the Kang family. Until it doesn't." A sound echoed through the warehouse metal scraping against concrete. Both of them froze. "We're not alone," Keisha whispered, already moving to shut down the tablet, plunging them into darkness. Jin drew his Glock, muscle memory taking over despite the pain in his ribs. He pressed his back against the wall beside the door, gesturing for Keisha to take the opposite side. Footsteps on the stairs. Multiple sets. Professional. Trained. "Dae-hyun's cleanup crew," Jin mouthed. Keisha nodded, pulling her own weapon, a matte black pistol that looked well used and well loved. The first man through the door took Jin's bullet between the eyes. The second caught Keisha's shot in the throat. They dropped without a sound, but the gunfire echoed like thunder. "Go!" Jin shoved Keisha toward the window at the back of the office. "Fire escape." She didn't argue, already running. Jin followed, firing blind into the doorway as more men flooded in. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness like lightning. The fire escape was rusted and treacherous, groaning under their weight as they descended. Below, more men were pouring out of black vans, at least 8, maybe more. "They knew we were coming," Keisha hissed. "Or they've been watching this place, waiting to see if anyone figured it out." Jin hit the ground running, Keisha beside him, both of them sprinting toward the dock's edge. Bullets chewed up concrete behind them. Jin grabbed Keisha's hand, pulling her behind a shipping container just as automatic fire tore through the space they'd occupied. "Any brilliant ideas?" she gasped. Jin looked at the water, black, cold, 30 feet down. Then at the men closing in, tactical formation, no escape. One terrible one. He met her eyes. "Can you swim?" "Are you insane?" He didn't give her time to finish. Jin wrapped his arm around her waist and jumped. The water hit like concrete. Cold shocked through Jin's system, his ribs screaming protest as they plunged deep into Incheon Harbor. Keisha thrashed against him, then understood, kicking upward with powerful strokes. They surfaced beneath the dock, gasping, gunfire echoing overhead as Dae-hyun's men searched the water. Keisha's eyes blazed with fury, and something that might have been adrenaline-fueled respect. "Never," she wheezed. "Do that again." "You're welcome," Jin managed, tasting salt and blood. They floated there in the darkness, his arm still around her waist, her hands gripping his shoulders, both of them alive against all odds. "We have the evidence," Keisha said. "Your brother's conspiracy. All of it. Then we use it." Jin's voice was dark with promise. We turn his empire against him. Above them, the footsteps faded, the hunt moving elsewhere. But here in the cold water where Marcus Robinson had died, two enemies turned allies forged their war. Jin's safe house was a corpse. They stood on the rooftop, dripping harbor water onto concrete, staring at what used to be his sanctuary. The penthouse 3 floors below was gutted, windows blown out, walls blackened by fire, the smell of smoke still thick in the Seoul night air. Daehyun's message was clear. There's nowhere you can hide. When? Keisha's voice was rough from swallowing seawater. While we were at the docks. Jin's jaw was tight enough to crack teeth. He's eliminating my resources. Every safe house, every account, every ally. Efficient. It's what I would do. They were alone on the rooftop, the city sprawling below them like a circuit board of light and shadow. Jin's tactical gear clung to him like a second skin, soaked through, his hair plastered to his forehead. He looked younger like this, stripped of his usual armor, just a man who'd lost everything. Keisha wasn't much better. Her leather jacket was ruined, curls heavy with salt water, mascara smudged beneath her eyes. But even drenched and exhausted, she was striking. The kind of beautiful that made you forget to breathe. Jin looked away first. We can't stay here, he said, moving toward the rooftop's edge. Daehyun's men will sweep this location within the hour. Where do we go? Keisha followed, wrapping her arms around herself against the night chill. Your empire's collapsed. My apartment's compromised. We're ghosts. Then we become better ghosts. Jin turned to face her, something shifting in his expression. But first, we need to make this official. Make what official? Our alliance. The word hung between them, weighted with implications neither wanted to examine too closely. Keisha tilted her head, studying him. You want to make a deal. With the woman whose father you murdered. I want to destroy my brother, and you want justice. Jin stepped closer, close enough that she had to look up to meet his eyes. Our goals align. Temporarily. Temporarily, she echoed, but something in her voice suggested she didn't quite believe it. You have the technical skills, the hacking expertise, access to networks outside the syndicate. Jin counted on his fingers, all business despite the water dripping from his hair. I have insider knowledge. I know Daehyun's weaknesses, his patterns, how he thinks. You also have a target on your back the size of Seoul. So do you. His smile was sharp. The moment Daehyun realizes you have that footage, you're dead. We're both dead unless we work together. Keisha moved to the rooftop's edge, looking down at the city. The wind caught her wet hair, sending droplets of water scattering like diamonds. What exactly are you proposing? Jin joined her at the railing, their shoulders almost touching. An alliance. Equal partnership. We pool our resources, our skills, our networks. We take down Daehyun together. And then we settle our debt. He met her eyes. You and me. Whatever that looks like. Keisha laughed, but it was bitter. You mean I get to decide whether to put a bullet in your head once this is over? If that's what you need. The words were quiet, sincere, and they hit Keisha harder than any threat could have. She turned to face him fully, searching his face for the lie, the manipulation. You'd really let me kill you? I killed your father, an innocent man. Jin's voice was rough with something that might have been guilt. If revenge is what brings you peace, then yes, I'd let you. You're either very noble or very stupid. Probably both. Despite everything, the cold, the exhaustion, the impossibility of their situation, Keisha smiled. Small, barely there, but real. Okay, she said. Alliance. But I have conditions. Name them. First, full transparency. No more secrets. You tell me everything about Daehyun, the syndicate, your operations. Agreed. Second, I'm not your subordinate. We make decisions together. Equal say. I can live with that. Third, she stepped closer, close enough that he could smell her perfume beneath the saltwater vanilla and something spicy. You don't lie to me. Not once. Not about anything. Because if I find out you've betrayed me like you betrayed my father, I won't. Jin's voice was steady, absolute. You have my word. Your word. Keisha's laugh was sharp. The word of a Mafia king means nothing. Then what do you want? Blood oath? Signed contract? Jin held out his hand, palm up. I'm offering you everything I have left, Keisha. My knowledge, my loyalty, my life. What more can I give you? She stared at his hand, elegant fingers, calloused palms, the hand that had pulled the trigger 3 years ago, the hand that had saved her at the docks. Trust, she said quietly. Give me a reason to trust you." Jin was silent for a long moment. Then he pulled a knife from his boot, a tactical blade, matte black, deadly. Before Keisha could react, he drew it across his palm. Blood welled up, dark and vivid against his skin. "In my family," he said. "Blood seals every oath, every promise." He held out his bleeding hand. "I swear on my mother's grave, on everything I've lost and everything I'll never get back, I will help you destroy the man who killed your father. I will not betray you. And when this is over, if you want my life, it's yours." Keisha stared at him like he'd lost his mind. "You're insane." "Probably." His hand didn't waver. "But I'm also serious." She should walk away. Should leave this broken Mafia king to his war and disappear into whatever life she could salvage. Instead, Keisha took the knife from his hand. "You're going to regret this," she muttered, drawing the blade across her own palm. The sting was sharp, immediate, grounding. Blood pooled in the lines of her hand, matching his. "I already do," Jin said, but his eyes were soft. Keisha pressed her palm to his. Blood mixed with blood, warm and binding, their fingers intertwining with an intimacy that felt more dangerous than any weapon. "Alliance," she whispered. "Alliance," he confirmed. They stood like that on the rooftop, hands clasped, blood binding them in a pact neither fully understood. The city hummed beneath them. Seoul, beautiful, deadly, indifferent to the two people declaring war on its underworld. Jin's thumb brushed across her knuckles, a gesture so gentle it made her breath catch. Their eyes met and held, and for a moment the anger, the grief, the betrayal, all of it faded into something else. Want. Raw and undeniable, and absolutely forbidden. Keisha pulled her hand away first, breaking the contact like breaking a spell. "Don't," she said, voice unsteady. "Don't what?" "Whatever you're thinking. Don't." She wrapped her bleeding hand in a strip of cloth torn from her shirt. "This is business. An alliance against a common enemy. Nothing more." "Of course." Jin's voice was carefully neutral, but his eyes told a different story. "Nothing more." "Liar," his expression said. "Liar," hers answered back. They left the rooftop separately, Jin first, disappearing into the shadows like he was born to them. Keisha waited 5 minutes, watching to make sure no one followed, before descending the fire escape. But as she climbed down the rusted metal, her palm still stinging where their blood had mixed, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just made a deal with the devil. Or worse. She'd made a deal with the devil, and felt her carefully constructed hatred crack. Because Won Jin Kang, the man she'd sworn to kill, had just offered her his life with the kind of sincerity that couldn't be faked, had bound himself to her with blood and oath and something that looked dangerously like trust. And Keisha Robinson, who'd spent 3 years turning her grief into a weapon, had taken his hand and sealed the pact. "God help me," she whispered to the Soul Knight. But the city offered no absolution, only the promise of war, and the dangerous heat of an enemy who'd become something far more complicated than hate. The nightclub was a temple to excess. Club Paradiso, 3 floors of Seoul's elite, drowning their sins in champagne and bass that rattled your bones. Jin knew it well. He used to own a stake in it, back when he was still king instead of ghost. "This is suicide," Keisha said into the wire hidden beneath her ear. She was at the bar downstairs, wrapped in a black dress that hugged every curve, looking like sin with a credit card. "Half the syndicate is here. Then we blend in." Jin's voice crackled through the earpiece. He was 2 floors above her in VIP, dressed in designer armor, black suit, no tie, hair swept back. He looked like money and danger in equal measure. Daehyun's lieutenant parks himself at the private tables every Friday. "If we can get him alone, we can make him talk. I know the plan." Keisha accepted a martini from the bartender, not drinking, just holding it like a prop. "Doesn't mean it's not insane. You agreed to it." "I agreed to a lot of things I'm starting to regret." Through the crowd, Jin watched her on the monitors behind the VIP bar. Even on grainy security footage, she was magnetic. The past 3 days they'd been planning this hold-up in a cheap motel on the outskirts of Seoul, mapping syndicate movements, building strategy, not sleeping, not eating properly, definitely not acknowledging the tension that crackled between them every time they got too close. "Target's moving," Keisha's voice cut through his thoughts. "Northeast corner. 2 bodyguards." Jin spotted him, Lieutenant Park, Dae-hyun's logistics officer, the man who'd helped orchestrate Jin's poisoning. 40-something, expensive watch, the kind of arrogance that came from thinking you were untouchable. "I've got eyes on him," moving to intercept. Jin descended the stairs with the confidence of someone who still owned the place. Muscle memory. People parted without realizing why. some instinct recognizing predator even when the predator wore Tom Ford. He was 3 steps from Park's table when he saw it, the bartender's hand moving to his jacket, the woman in the red dress blocking the exit, the way the security guard's postures shifted from casual to operational. Trap. Keisha, get out. The lights went out. Gunfire erupted like thunder, muzzle flashes painting the darkness in strobe light violence. People screamed, stampeding toward exits. Jin dropped low, weapon already in his hand, firing blind toward where the bartender had been. Someone tackled him from behind, bodyguard, professional, driving him into a table that exploded into splinters. Pain shot through Jin's still healing ribs. He drove his elbow back, felt cartilage crunch, rolled away as bullets chewed up the floor where he'd been. Jin! Keisha's voice in his ear, breathless and furious. VIP room, now! He ran, vaulting over the bar, bullets tracking his movement. The VIP room door hung open, Keisha silhouetted against emergency lighting, her dress torn at the thigh, gun in hand, hair wild around her face. Beautiful and lethal and everything he shouldn't want. Jin dove through the door. Keisha slammed it shut, shooting the lock mechanism. Metal clanged something heavy, reinforcing the door from outside. They're locking us in, she gasped. I noticed. The VIP room was smaller than Jin remembered, plush couches, a private bar, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the club below where chaos reigned, and one door, now sealed shut with them inside. Keisha moved to the windows. Reinforced glass. We're not breaking through. Then we hold position until... Crash. The door shuddered under impact. They were coming through. Jin grabbed a couch, shoving it against the door. Keisha helped, both of them moving with synchronized precision. Another impact. Wood splintered. How many men does your brother have? Keisha demanded, reloading her weapon with practiced efficiency. In Seoul? Hundreds. Fantastic. Crash. The door buckled. Jin could see hands through the gap, hear voices coordinating. When they breach, he said, taking position beside the door. You go left, I go right. Aim for center mass. Don't hesitate. Keisha took her position opposite him. Their eyes met across 3 feet of space that felt like miles. If we die here, she started. We're not dying here, but if we do. Her voice was fierce. I need you to know I still hate you. Jin's smile was sharp as broken glass. Good. I'd be disappointed otherwise. The door exploded inward. They moved like they'd been fighting together for years instead of days. Jin took the first man with a bullet through the throat, the second with a knife he'd palmed from the bar. Keisha was poetry and violence, 3 shots, 3 bodies, moving with a grace that came from years of survival. But they kept coming. 6 men, 8, a dozen, flooding the room with overwhelming force. Jin's gun clicked empty. He used it as a club, felt bone break against steel, took a hit to the jaw that made stars explode behind his eyes. Hands grabbed him, dragging him down. Then Keisha was there, kicking a knee backward with vicious precision, shooting the man holding Jin at point-blank range. Blood sprayed hot across Jin's face. He grabbed her hand, pulled her behind the overturned couch as bullets tore through leather and wood. They were pinned, outnumbered, losing. Any brilliant ideas? Keisha gasped, checking her magazine. 3 bullets left. 2. Jin showed his backup pistol. We're not walking out of here. Then we make them pay for every inch. She looked at him, then really looked, and something in her expression cracked. Fear, maybe, or acceptance, or something else entirely. This is your fault, she said. All of it. My father, this war, us. I know. I should have let you die in that alley. I know. I still want to kill you. I know. Jin reached up, cupped her face with a hand still slick with someone else's blood. But you saved me anyway. Worst decision of my life. Probably. The space between them evaporated. Keisha grabbed his collar and kissed him hard, desperate, tasting like blood and smoke, and 3 years of grief turned molten. Jin's hand tangled in her hair, pulling her closer, kissing her back with the hunger of a man who'd been dying since the moment he met her. It wasn't gentle, wasn't tender. It was war, all teeth and fury, and the kind of desire that burned everything it touched. Keisha bit his lip hard enough to draw blood. Jin groaned against her mouth, his hand sliding to her waist, feeling the rapid drum of her heartbeat through ruined silk. I hate you, she whispered between kisses. I know, he breathed, forehead pressed to hers. This changes nothing. Everything. The word came out broken, honest. It changes everything. A sound cut through the moment, metal scraping metal. The assassins regrouping for final assault. Keisha pulled back, lips swollen, eyes blazing. We're still going to die here. Maybe. Jin checked his weapon. 2 bullets. But at least I got to do that first. Despite everything, she laughed wild and slightly unhinged. You're insane. You kissed me back. Also insane. The door to the VIP room burst open again. But this time, the gunfire came from behind the attackers. Bodies dropped. Someone screamed. The assault faltered. A new voice cut through the chaos. Jin, Keisha, East Window. Jin's heart stopped. He knew that voice. That's impossible, Keisha finished. But through the smoke and violence, a figure appeared. Older, scarred, supposedly dead for 3 years. Marcus Robinson, Keisha's father, alive. The man Jin had killed, standing in the doorway with a rifle and a smile that promised explanations and reckoning in equal measure. Miss me, baby girl? Marcus Robinson was a ghost made flesh. They stood in a safe house 3 miles from Club Paradiso, a stripped apartment that smelled like mold and old coffee. Marcus leaned against the wall, very much alive, watching his daughter with eyes that held 3 years of secrets. You're dead, Keisha said for the 3rd time. Her voice was hollow, shock making her movements mechanical. I identified your body. I buried you. You buried a corpse. Marcus's Jamaican accent was exactly as Jin remembered, warm molasses over steel. Not me. Jin stood apart, weapon still in hand, unable to reconcile the man he'd killed with the man standing 10 feet away. I shot you, point blank, center mass. You went down. You shot the vest I was wearing. Marcus pulled up his shirt, revealing scar tissue across his ribs. Hurt like hell. Broke 3 ribs, but the bullet didn't penetrate. I went down, played dead. Your men didn't check closely enough. The body, Keisha's voice cracked. I saw your face, your tattoos, everything. Daehyun's work. Marcus's expression turned dark. He needed everyone to believe I was dead, you. Jin, the syndicate. So he found a body, similar build, same height. Had someone forge my tattoos, arrange my personal effects on the corpse. The words landed like punches. Why? Keisha's hands were shaking. Why let me think you were dead for 3 years? Marcus moved toward his daughter, but she stepped back, betrayal written across her face. Because Daehyun told me if I surfaced, if I tried to contact you, he'd kill you for real. His voice broke. I had to disappear, completely, build a new network from nothing. And I had to let you grieve, baby girl, because grief kept you safe. Safe? Keisha's laugh was jagged glass. I spent 3 years planning to murder Jin. I turned myself into a weapon because of you. I know. Marcus looked at Jin, something complicated in his expression. And I'm sorry. To both of you. Jin's mind was racing, recalibrating everything he thought he knew. If you're alive, then Daehyun's been running a longer game than we realized. 5 years, Marcus confirmed. Maybe more. I've been tracking his movements, his alliances. He's not just taking over the Kang Syndicate, he's building something bigger. Connections with Yakuza, Triad, Russian Bratva. He wants to control all of Seoul's underworld. Then we need proof. Keisha's voice was steadier now, grief hardening into purpose. Evidence that links him to everything. The frame-up, the poisoning, all of it. His headquarters, Jin said. My old headquarters. That's where he'd keep the most damaging files. Ego demands he work from the seat of power. Marcus nodded. It's a fortress. 24-hour security. Biometric locks. Armed guards on every floor. I can get in. Keisha was already moving toward her laptop, fingers flying across keys. I still have backdoor access to the security system from when I was tracking Jin. Daehyun hasn't changed the architecture. You sure? Jin asked. She met his eyes still raw from the kiss, from the revelation, from everything bleeding between them. No, but we're out of options. 2 hours later, Keisha was inside the Dragon's Den. The Kang Syndicate headquarters rose 40 stories above Seoul Glass and steel monument to Empire. Keisha moved through the executive floor wearing a cleaning uniform, ID badge cloned from a real employee, confidence the only armor that mattered. Camera loop is holding, Jin's voice crackled in her earpiece. He was stationed 3 blocks away with Marcus, monitoring security feeds. You've got 7 minutes before the next patrol sweep. Copy. Daehyun's office was obscene floor-to-ceiling windows, furniture that cost more than cars, and a wall of monitors displaying the Syndicate's global operations. Keisha moved to his desk, plugging a drive into his computer. The decryption program Jin had given her worked fast, stripping away firewalls like peeling skin. Files bloomed across the screen, financial records, communication logs, video archives. I'm in, Downloading everything. Make it fast. Marcus's voice this time. Security's rotating early. Keisha's eyes scanned folders, searching for anything related to the Incheon docs. There, Project Succession. She opened it. The screen filled with emails between Dae-hyun and Yakuza contacts, dating back 5 years. Plans to frame Marcus Robinson. Detailed instructions for the fake corpse. And something else. A video file. Timestamp. 3 years ago. The night at the docks. Keisha's breath caught. She clicked play. The footage was grainy, shot from a different angle than the warehouse camera. It showed Jin and Marcus at the docks. The moment of execution. Jin raised his weapon. Aimed. His hand was steady, but his face— "I'm sorry," on-screen Jin said, so quiet the camera barely caught it. "This isn't personal." "It never is," Marcus replied. Jin's finger moved to the trigger, but he hesitated just a fraction of a second. His aim shifted slightly, away from center mass, toward the vest. Then a second shot rang out. From behind Jin, Marcus went down. Blood bloomed. But the angle was wrong, the trajectory different. Keisha's hands shook as she zoomed in. There in the background, Dae-hyun, half hidden in shadow, pistol raised. Dae-hyun had fired the real kill shot. Jin's bullet had hit the vest, non-lethal. His brother's bullet had been aimed to kill, only Marcus had twisted at the last second, taking it through the shoulder instead of the heart. "Oh my God," Keisha breathed. "What is it?" Jin's voice sharp in her ear. "Keisha, what did you find? You didn't kill him." Her voice cracked. "Jin, you didn't kill my father. You tried to fake it. Your aim was off on purpose, you hit the vest. It was Dae-hyun who fired the kill shot." Silence. Then, "That's impossible. I pulled the trigger. I saw him fall." "You pulled a trigger. But you weren't the only one shooting." Keisha was downloading the video, hands moving on autopilot. "You tried to save him." "Keisha, you need to move," Marcus cut in. "Guards approaching your floor. 30 seconds. She yanked the drive free, pocketing it. But her mind was reeling. Everything she'd believed, the hate she'd built her life on, was built on a lie. Jin hadn't murdered her father in cold blood. He'd tried to save him, and she'd spent 3 years wanting him dead. "I'm out." Keisha moved toward the window, toward the maintenance shaft Jin had mapped. But her body felt mechanical, her thoughts spiraling. She'd kissed the man she thought killed her father. Turned out she'd kissed the man who'd tried to spare him. 30 minutes later, they were back at the safe house. Keisha burst through the door, drive in hand, eyes finding Jin immediately. He stood as she approached, wariness and something else in his expression. "Show me your gun," she demanded. "The one you used that night. I don't have it anymore." "Jin, show me." He pulled out his current weapon, different model, but similar, held it out, waiting. Keisha took it, checked the sight alignment, the trigger pull. Then she looked up at him. "You're left eye dominant, but you shoot right-handed. It throws your aim slightly right at close range." Her voice was shaking. "If you'd been aiming to kill my father, you would have compensated, but you didn't. You let the natural pull take you right toward his vest, not his heart." Jin's face was unreadable. "I don't remember." "You remember." She shoved the drive toward Marcus. "Show him." Marcus pulled up the footage on a laptop. They watched in silence Jin's momentary hesitation, his shifted aim, and then Dae-hyun's shot from behind. When it ended, Jin's face was carved from stone. "I thought I killed him," he said quietly. "All these years, I believed. You tried to fake it." Keisha's voice broke. "You tried to save my father, and your brother made sure you'd believe you'd murdered him." The weight of it crushed down 3 years of grief and rage and revenge, all built on Dae-hyun's manipulation. Keisha looked at Jin, this man she'd hated, hunted, kissed, and felt something fundamental shift. "I wanted to kill you," she whispered. "I built my whole life around killing you." "I know. And you weren't even the one who—" Her voice broke completely. Jin crossed the space between them in 2 strides, pulling her against his chest. Keisha fought for half a second, then collapsed into him. 3 years of rage dissolving into something raw. "I'm sorry," Jin said into her hair. "I'm so sorry." "For what?" "You tried to save him. For not being strong enough to refuse the order in the first place." They stood like that, enemy and ally, and something neither could name, while Marcus watched with eyes that understood too much. "We end this," Keisha said finally, pulling back. Her face was tear-streaked but fierce. "We take everything from Dae-hyun. Everything." Jin's smile was sharp as vengeance. Together. Dae-hyun's mansion was a fortress pretending to be a home. 2 a.m. Seoul's elite neighborhood slept behind high walls and security systems. Daehyun's estate sprawled across 2 acres manicured gardens, koi ponds, and enough armed guards to start a small war. Jin, Keisha, and Marcus crouched in the shadows beyond the perimeter wall. Last chance to walk away, Jin said quietly. Once we go in, there's no coming back. You think I came this far to turn around now? Keisha checked her weapons. 2 pistols, tactical knife, the kind of controlled fury that made her more dangerous than any gun. Marcus laid a hand on his daughter's shoulder. You don't have to do this, baby girl. Let me and Jin handle. He made me think you were dead for 3 years. Her eyes were hard as diamonds. I'm going in. Jin met her gaze across the darkness. Something unspoken passed between them. Acknowledgement, respect, and the memory of a kiss that had changed everything. Together, he said. Together, she confirmed. They moved like smoke through the gardens. Marcus took out the perimeter guards with silent precision ex-military training that hadn't dulled in 3 years of hiding. Keisha disabled security cameras with a device that pulsed electromagnetic interference. Jin led them through the grounds he'd walked 100 times as Daehyun's older brother, back when family meant something other than betrayal. The mansion's side entrance yielded to Keisha's lockpicks. They slipped inside marble floors, artwork worth millions, the suffocating wealth of empire. He's in the study, Jin whispered. 3rd floor, east wing. They climbed the stairs in darkness, weapons raised. 2 guards on the 2nd floor landing. Jin took the first with a suppressed shot, Keisha the second. The bodies fell with barely a sound. The study doors were ornate, mahogany, light bleeding beneath them. Music played inside, classical, something by Chopin. Daehyun always did have pretensions. Jin's hand hovered over the handle. Every muscle in his body was coiled tight, years of brotherhood and betrayal condensing into this single moment. Keisha touched his arm. Whatever he says in there, remember you tried to save my father. The words were absolution he didn't deserve, but accepted anyway. Jin kicked the door open. Kang Daehyun sat behind a massive desk, drink in hand, smile in place. Hyung, he said warmly, like Jin hadn't been poisoned and hunted and erased. I was wondering when you'd figure it out. Stand up. Jin's voice was ice. His weapon aimed at his brother's chest this time. He wouldn't miss. Daehyun stood slowly, hands visible, unbothered by the 3 weapons trained on him. He looked good, expensive suit, styled hair, the confidence of someone who'd already won. And you brought guests. Marcus Robinson alive. What a surprise. And his daughter, the woman who's been tracking me for months. His eyes found Keisha. You're very good. I almost didn't catch you hacking my systems. Almost doesn't count, Keisha said coldly. No, I suppose it doesn't. Daehyun took a sip of his drink. So what's the plan? Revenge? Justice? You kill me and everything goes back to normal? Nothing about this is normal, Jin said. You framed an innocent man, poisoned your own brother, built an empire on corpses and lies. I built an empire on vision. Daehyun's voice sharpened. Something you never had, Hyung. You were always too soft, too conflicted, too busy mourning the people you killed to actually run the syndicate properly. I ran it for 10 years. You ran it into stagnation. I'm expanding, growing, making the Kang name mean something beyond Seoul. Daehyun spread his arms. You should be thanking me. Jin's finger tightened on the trigger. Thank you for trying to murder me? For freeing you. Daehyun's smile turned cruel. Tell me, Hyung, how many nights did you wake up screaming? How many times did you see their faces, the people you executed on father's orders? The woman in Busan, the politician's son, that little girl in... Shut up. The warehouse fire. What was she? 8? 9? Daehyun leaned forward. You never wanted this life. You just didn't have the spine to refuse it. The words hit like bullets. Jin's hand wavered, memories flooding back, blood and fire and the faces of the innocent dead. The sins he carried that no amount of power could erase. I did what was necessary, Jin said, but his voice lacked conviction. You did what father told you, like a good little soldier. Daehyun's laugh was vicious. At least I own my choices. You? You're just a coward with good aim. Jin's weapon lowered a fraction. The guilt Daehyun was weaponizing every kill, every order, every compromise crashed down like an avalanche. Maybe he did deserve to die in that alley. Jin. Keisha's voice cut through the spiral. Don't listen to him. Why not? Daehyun turned his venom on her. He killed dozens following orders. You think sparing your father erases that? He's a monster, Miss Robinson. Just one with a guilty conscience. And you're a monster with none, Keisha shot back. Which makes you more dangerous. Perhaps. Daehyun reached slowly toward his desk drawer. But at least I'll die honest about what I am. Everything happened at once. Daehyun pulled a weapon from the drawer. Jin fired, but his aim was off, guilt making his hand shake. The bullet went wide. Daehyun's shot didn't. It caught Jin in the shoulder, spinning him backward. He crashed into a bookshelf, blood blossoming across his shirt. Marcus fired center mass. Professional, but Daehyun had already rolled behind the desk. Return fire forced Marcus to cover. Keisha moved. She was across the room in seconds, sliding across polished floor, weapon raised. Daehyun emerged from cover gun aimed not at her, but at Jin, still down, wounded and vulnerable. Nothing personal, Hyung, Daehyun said. Just business. Keisha fired first. 3 shots, center mass, professional, lethal. Daehyun's eyes widened in shock, in betrayal that he had no right to feel. He looked down at the blood spreading across his expensive shirt, then up at Keisha. You chose him? He sounded genuinely confused. I chose justice, Keisha said coldly. Not vengeance. There's a difference. Daehyun laughed wet, bubbling, and collapsed. The gun fell from his hand, clattering across marble. He tried to speak, but only blood came out. Then nothing. Silence. Marcus moved first, checking Daehyun's pulse, confirming what they all knew. He's gone. Keisha stood frozen, weapon still raised, staring at the man she'd killed. Not for her father, not for herself. For Jin. She'd broken her vow. Chosen to save the man she'd sworn to kill rather than let him die at his brother's hand. Keisha. Jin's voice, rough with pain, pulled her back. He was trying to stand, blood soaking through his shoulder. She holstered her weapon and crossed to him, hands immediately assessing the damage. You're hit. I've noticed. His smile was pained. You saved me. Don't read into it. You saved me, he repeated, something raw in his voice. After everything. I chose to end this war. Keisha's hands were shaking as she applied pressure to his wound. That's all. Liar, his eyes said. Liar, hers admitted. Marcus cleared his throat. We need to move. Police will respond to the gunfire. We have maybe 5 minutes. But Jin was staring at Keisha like she'd rewritten the universe. You could have let him kill me, gotten your revenge. I know. So why didn't you? Keisha met his eyes, this man who'd tried to save her father, who'd been poisoned by his own blood, who carried the weight of sins not entirely his own. Because, she said quietly, mercy is the hardest form of strength. My father taught me that. She pressed harder on his wound, feeling his blood warm against her palms, binding them more thoroughly than any oath. And because you're not your brother's sins, Jin, you're just yours. It wasn't forgiveness, not entirely, but it was possibility, the kind worth saving. They escaped into Seoul's night, 3 ghosts fleeing a mansion of corpses, sirens wailing in the distance. Behind them, Kang Daehyun lay dead in his study, empire crumbling, ambitions bleeding out on marble floors. Ahead of them, an uncertain future. But Jin and Keisha walked side by side, and for the first time in 3 years, neither was alone. 6 months later, Jeju Island woke slowly, sunrise painting the volcanic beaches in shades of gold and rose. The air smelled like salt and possibility clean, untainted by Seoul's neon violence. Wonjin Kang stood at the water's edge, barefoot, dress shirt rolled to his elbows, watching the tide erase footprints from black sand. Behind him, a small house, nothing like the penthouses and mansions he used to own. Wood and glass, simple lines, the kind of place that didn't scream power because it didn't need to. The Kang Syndicate was dead. Daehyun's empire had collapsed within weeks of his death, lieutenants turning on each other, operations falling apart without their architect. The police had swept in, making arrests that would have been impossible when corruption owned the badges. Jin had watched from a distance, offering intel to the prosecutors anonymously, dismantling from within what he'd once helped build. Penance, one corruption charge at a time. You're up early, Keisha's voice carried across the beach. Jin turned to find her walking toward him, wrapped in one of his shirts, her curls wild from sleep, coffee mug cradled in both hands. The sunrise painted her skin gold, and for a moment Jin forgot how to breathe. 6 months, and she still did that to him. Couldn't sleep, he said. Nightmares? Memories. She reached him, standing close enough that their shoulders touched. They stood like that often now, not quite embracing, but not separate either, finding comfort in proximity without demanding more than the other could give. Which ones? She asked quietly. All of them. Jin's voice was rough. The people I killed, the orders I followed, the man I was. You're not him anymore, aren't I? He looked down at his hands, the same hands that had pulled triggers, signed death warrants, built an empire on blood. The scars don't fade, Keisha. The guilt doesn't disappear just because I moved to an island. No, she agreed. But you're choosing differently now. That matters. The past 6 months had been reconstruction. Not of empire, but of identity. Jin had liquidated what remained of his legitimate assets, the ones Dae-hyun hadn't seized or the police hadn't frozen. He'd funneled the money into a foundation, one that Marcus now ran from Seoul. The Robinson Initiative supporting families affected by organized crime, funding addiction recovery, building the kind of safety net Jin had spent years destroying. Redemption you can measure in spreadsheets, Marcus had said when Jin proposed it. Your father would hate it. Good, Jin had replied. Keisha had been there for the launch, watching Jin sign papers that gave away everything he'd bled for. She'd seen the relief on his face, the weight finally, partially lifting. You know this doesn't erase what you've done, she'd told him that night. I know, but it's a start. She'd stayed. That was the part neither of them had expected. After Dae-hyun's death, after the police investigations and the syndicate's collapse, Keisha could have disappeared. Should have disappeared. Instead, she'd followed Jin to Jeju Island, claiming she needed time to process, to heal, to figure out who she was beyond vengeance. But really, she'd stayed because leaving felt like losing something she'd just found. Not love, not yet, maybe never in the simple way, but something more complicated. Understanding, partnership, the recognition of shared damage. They'd spent months learning each other in ways that had nothing to do with violence. Jin taught her to cook traditional Korean dishes, his mother's recipes, the ones he'd never made for anyone. Keisha taught him to dance. Jamaican music playing through tinny speakers while they laughed at his terrible rhythm. They talked about their fathers, Jin's, a brutal king who'd raised sons as weapons. Keisha's, a flawed man who'd loved her fiercely despite his mistakes. They didn't talk about the future. Some wounds needed time. Marcus called yesterday, Keisha said now, breaking the comfortable silence. The foundation's opening its 3rd shelter next month. Seoul, Busan, and now Incheon. Incheon. Jin's voice was tight. Where your father? I know. She took a sip of coffee. I think it's fitting, turning that pain into something that helps people. Your father would be proud. He is. Keisha smiled, small but genuine. He told me so. Very emphatically. With terrible dad jokes. Despite everything, Jin laughed. Marcus had stayed in Seoul, rebuilding his own networks, legitimate ones this time. He and Keisha video called twice a week, making up for lost time, healing the wound of 3 years apart. He asked about you, Keisha added, something careful in her tone. What did you tell him? That you're figuring it out, like the rest of us. Jin looked at her, really looked. The woman who'd saved him, hunted him, kissed him like warfare, chosen him over vengeance. She was still dangerous, still fierce, still capable of violence when necessary. But here on this beach, wrapped in his shirt, she was also soft, human, healing. Are we? He asked quietly. Figuring it out? Keisha set her coffee mug on a rock, turning to face him fully. The sunrise backlit her like a halo. And Jin's artist's eye, the one he'd buried under years of blood, recognized the moment as something sacred. I don't know, she admitted. Some days I wake up and I still see my father's corpse. I remember that you gave the order, even if you tried to spare him. I remember 3 years of grief. And other days I wake up next to you and I'm grateful. The word seemed to surprise her. Grateful that you're trying, that you're choosing to be better, that you're not running from what you've done. She reached up, touching his face, the scar along his jaw from the nightclub, another reminder of violence survived. We're both broken, Jin. Maybe that's all we'll ever be. Broken people trying not to cut each other on the sharp edges. That doesn't sound like a happy ending. No, Keisha agreed, but it sounds real. Jin caught her hand, pressing it against his chest where his heart beat steady and alive. I love you, he said, the words rough with disuse. I don't know if I deserve to. I don't know if it's enough to balance everything I've destroyed. But I do. Keisha's eyes filled with tears she didn't let fall. I'm not there yet, she whispered. I care about you. I choose you. But love is complicated, Jin finished. I know. Ask me again in a year. A year? Or 5? Her smile was watery but real. I'm not going anywhere, Jin. But healing isn't linear. Some days I'll want to kill you all over again. And other days? Other days I'll want to keep you. She pulled him down, kissing him soft and slow, tasting like coffee and salt air and second chances. When they broke apart, Jin rested his forehead against hers. I can work with that. Good, Keisha breathed, because you're stuck with me. They walked the beach as the sun climbed higher. Two people who'd tried to destroy each other learning to build something instead. Redemption wasn't a destination. It was the choice made every morning to try, to be better, to face the damage without flinching. Jin's empire was gone, rebuilt as something that healed, instead of hurt. Keisha's vengeance was gone, transformed into partnership with the man she'd sworn to kill. Their scars remained physical, emotional, the kind that never fully faded. But here on Jeju Island, with black sand between their toes and sunrise painting the world new, they were free. Free from the past's grip. Free to choose who they'd become. Free to be broken and healing and dangerously, impossibly alive. Jin pulled Keisha closer, and she let him, her head resting against his shoulder as they watched the tide come in. What happens now? She asked. Jin thought about the foundation, about the people they'd help, about the long road of atonement still ahead, about the woman beside him who'd chosen mercy over murder and given him something he'd never deserved. A future. Now, he said quietly, we keep trying. To be better, to be enough. Keisha laced her fingers through his brown skin against pale, her father's daughter and his father's son, bound by blood and choice and the fragile hope of redemption. We already are, she whispered. And for the first time in his life, Won Jin Kang believed her. And that's where we leave Jin and Keisha, not with a perfect ending, but a real one. Two broken people choosing to heal together. If this story grabbed you, if you felt every moment of their war and their redemption, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment and tell me, did Jin earn his second chance? Does Keisha deserve her peace? I want to hear your thoughts. We've got more intense stories coming your way. Passion, danger, characters who will break your heart and put it back together. The next video is already on your screen. Click it before you forget, because trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming next. And hey, if this story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances. We're building something special here, and I want you on this journey with us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. Stay dangerous, stay hopeful, and I'll see you in the next story. This is Korean Dynasty Stories. And remember, even the most broken kings can learn to kneel.